Most people think small talk is shallow. It's not. Small talk is a ladder. And if you don't know how to climb it, you'll spend your whole life stuck at the bottom rung, talking about the weather with people you'll never actually connect with. Here's the moment you already know. You're at a party, an event, a work function, somewhere you technically know people, but don't really know them. Someone asks how your week's been. You say, good, busy, you know how it is. They nod, you nod. And then there's this awkward little silence where neither of you knows where to go next. That silence isn't bad luck. It's a sign you're stuck on the wrong rung of the ladder, and most people never learn there even is a ladder to climb. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why small talk feels so awkward, and you're going to have a simple framework. I call it the ladder technique, that turns any service-level conversation into a real one without it feeling forced, weird, or overly personal. This works in any room, with almost any person, and once you see it, you can't unseen it. Let's start with why small talk feels so uncomfortable in the first place. Small talk isn't actually about the weather, or the traffic, or how busy work has been. Those topics are just the first rung of the ladder. Low-risk, low-reward questions designed to establish that neither person is a threat. That's it. That's their entire job. The problem is, most people get stuck there. They ask a first-rung question, get a first-rung answer, and then just stay there, bouncing shallow comment after shallow comment back and forth, wondering why the conversation feels dead. Here's the psychology behind it. Every conversation is a small negotiation about vulnerability. Each person is silently asking, is it safe to go a little deeper here? And most people, out of fear of rejection or awkwardness, never actually ask that second question. They just keep circling the first rung, assuming that's simply what conversation with new or semi-familiar people is supposed to feel like. It's not. It's just where most people get stuck. So here's the first practical shift. Recognize when you're standing on rung 1, the safe generic stuff, and understand that you're allowed to step up. Nobody's going to be offended if you ask a slightly better question. Most people are quietly hoping someone else will. Now let's talk about what climbing the ladder actually looks like, because this is the core of the whole technique. Think of every conversation as having 3 rungs. Rung 1 is surface facts, the weather, the commute, how work's been, how busy things are. Rung 2 is opinions and experiences, what someone thinks about something, what they've been dealing with, what they're looking forward to. Rung 3 is meaning, why something matters to them, what it says about what they value, what they're actually excited or worried about underneath the surface facts. Here's the move. When someone gives you a Rung 1 answer, don't respond with another Rung 1 comment. Ask a Rung 2 question instead. If someone says, work's been busy, instead of saying, yeah, same, try asking, what's been taking up most of your time? That single question moves the conversation from a fact to an experience. It's not invasive, it's not too personal. It's just one small step up the ladder, and almost everyone will follow you there, because most people are relieved someone finally asks something real. Once you're on rung 2, you can go one step further to rung 3, if the conversation is flowing and it feels natural. If someone tells you they've been swamped with a work project, you might ask, is that the kind of work that actually energizes you, or does it just drain you? That question invites them to talk about meaning, what they value, what fulfills them, what they're actually trying to build in their life. Most people rarely get asked that, and when you ask it, sincerely, without it feeling like an interview, it almost always lands as a small moment of real connection instead of just noise. Here's the practical rule to remember. Climb one rung at a time. Don't jump from how's the weather straight into someone's deepest fears. That's not depth, that's just awkward. The ladder works because it's gradual. Each step earns the right to the next one. Now let's talk about what happens when someone doesn't want to climb, because this matters just as much as knowing how to climb yourself. Sometimes you'll ask a rung 2 question, and the person gives you another rung 1 answer back. That's completely fine. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means in that moment, that person isn't ready to go deeper, or they're simply not in the mood, or the setting doesn't feel right to them. The mistake most people make here is either forcing it, pushing harder for depth the other person clearly isn't offering, or giving up on the conversation entirely and mentally checking out. The better move is simple. Step back down to rung 1 for a bit, let the conversation breathe, and try climbing again a little later, once there's more trust built up. Not every conversation needs to reach rung 3. Some conversations are only ever meant to live on rung 1, and that's fine too. The goal isn't to force depth everywhere. The goal is to recognize when depth is available and take it when it is. Here's a practical tip for reading that signal. Watch how much someone elaborates on their own. If their answers start getting longer, more detailed, more animated, that's usually an invitation to keep climbing. If their answers stay short and closed, that's your cue to stay where you are and just let the conversation be light. Reading that signal accurately is honestly half the skill. Let's talk about one more piece that ties this whole framework together, because knowing the ladder isn't enough if you're only ever climbing it alone. The ladder technique works best when it's mutual. That means after you ask a good question, you don't just interrogate the other person. You share something back at the same level. If you ask someone what's been energizing them lately, and they answer honestly, follow it with something honest of your own. This isn't about matching trauma for trauma. It's just about signaling that this is a two-way climb, not a one-sided questionnaire. People open up more when they can feel that you're willing to be just as visible as you're asking them to be. So here's your practical challenge for the next conversation you have. Whether it's today or this week, notice the first rung. Ask one question that moves it to rung 2. That's it. You don't need to engineer some deep, meaningful exchange every time you talk to a stranger or a coworker. You just need to practice noticing the ladder and taking one small step up it more often than you currently do. If this gave you a new way to think about conversation, subscribe to The Self Stranger, because this channel breaks down the small, overlooked mechanics behind how people actually connect. The kind of thing nobody explicitly teaches you, but changes almost every interaction once you see it. And I want to know, where do most of your conversations get stuck? Rung 1, rung 2, or do you usually make it all the way to rung 3? Tell me in the comments. Small talk was never actually small. It's just the first rung of a ladder most people never learn to climb.